Next up, we have the welcome from the Federal Highways Division Administrator, Ms. Alicia Nolan. Alicia Nolan has been working in the Pennsylvania Division Office as the Division Administrator since March of 2018. So please welcome Alicia Nolan.
For my presentation, I wanted to go a little bit more overview of why we're here and why it's important that we are concentrating on pavement preservation. And so with that, I wanted to start first for Federal Highway. We're nationwide. We set policy from Congress, implementation, and some of the things that we've been working on, we wanted to refocus and develop a strategic plan. And so we have now really identified 4 key areas for our strategic vision into the future, as well as our activities that we work on every day. And the 4 key activities are safety, infrastructure, innovation, and accountability. One that I'm going to talk about is infrastructure, and a subset of that is really performance management. I know for you guys, you have been living performance management for a long time, but I wanted to kind of bring everything back to say why we're here. Why is it important? What we're trying to achieve, and so critical for us to have a process to really follow as we're implementing the key provisions that were passed back in MAP 21, which is our legislative authorization bill back in 2012 on that fall, that was very critical for us to really shift the industry to be focused on performance, how we manage our assets, and ultimately how we preserve and give a longer lasting life to our pavements, the whole reason why you're here. And so I just wanted to bring this back so to kind of give you a why your conference is so critical, why it's so important for us to be here to talk about preservation of pavements and the critical areas. So just a few background. I love this slide because it's circular. It means that we're constantly in motion, trying to identify the national goals, what's important for us to achieve on a national basis, as well as the targeted activities throughout the core that give us the measures, the targets, the plans that we have, and what we're trying to achieve. Ultimately, the accountability with reports and transparency for the traveling public, which loops us back to that national goals if we need to make changes to it. The reason why we're focused on pavements, as we know, in the past, and a long time ago, I've been in the industry for over 30 years, we would make design decisions as far as pavements. And we said, oh, this is the life cycle of the pavement. We're going to, construct it. We're going to come in and do some, system preservation activities, and it's going to have this X life. Well, the construction happened, but that pavement preservation piece sometimes did not, and then we didn't have that life cycle of that pavement that we thought we would. And so this whole pavement process and performance-based is to really make us, account for that preservation piece that's very critical for us to maintain and move forward. We have developed criteria that we're going to measure for our pavements. It's the IRI, the cracking, the rutting, and the faulting. Now, based on that criteria and the data that we gather, we're going to determine if the pavements are in good condition, fair condition, or poor condition. And the targets that we're trying to achieve, based on our plans that we've developed and our targets that the states are coming up with, roll into what's known as the asset management plan. And the reason why I wanted to focus in on the asset management plan is something that's happening right now, this very time of the spring, moving into the summer, is when the final version of the asset management plans for the states are due. And so I wanted to make sure that there is an awareness of the preservation piece. Again, pavement preservation is key to the success of asset management and preserving our pavements and moving into the future. So the core questions are, really looking at, what are my assets currently? How are they, developing their level of service and their performance? What are the critical assets and how they're performing? And then ultimately the strategies that we're going to be implementing into those programs. And that's really where the pavement preservation piece comes into play, is looking at those preservation characteristics that are critical for us. And again, you being here, working together, coming up with ideas, working on innovation are critical for this to be successful. Core areas of the asset plan, we have minimal criteria that we've laid out as far as rulemaking, but these are the components that are going to really be added to that asset management plan to really make it a tool for strategies that you're identifying for projects and how they're going to be implemented into those programs and schedules and implementation stages. As Leo indicated, making tough decisions about funding is very critical, and it's difficult because you have to make choices. And an asset management plan is really a tool to help with some of those decisions that you're making for your critical assets based on priorities, based on strategies, how you're going to be implementing those strategies, and ultimately your accountability of how you're measuring the outcome of those strategies that you're performing. So I wanted to highlight some of the important due dates. First one has already been passed. The initial asset management plan was due last year, and that was an initial one. It didn't have to have all the components of the asset management plan. However, this June, your plan is necessary to have all those key components. And it's critical to make sure that we have that plan. And then as you're moving forward, that assessment and that development needs to continue, so it's repeated throughout the dynamic of the plan itself. One of the things that Federal Highway is going to be tasked with is to make sure that the plan is consistent with the requirements that we've laid out for the various components. And that's going to take place this summer after the plans come in June. No later than August 31st of this year is when we're going to have to make that consistency determination. Every year after that, we're going to be checking in to make sure that it is still consistent with the information. I wanted to show this because one aspect that we haven't talked about, the measures that have been developed, the asset plan, management plan. It's not just for pavements. There are other components, and the state can do, besides pavement and bridges, other assets to manage, is the component of planning, bringing it back to the loop so that those strategies actually get funded and into the system so that they do happen on a regular basis. And it's critical for us to work together in all the three of those areas. Ultimately, the key here is with collaboration and coordination. It's key that we start talking amongst ourselves of what's working, what's not working, and where the critical components need to be strengthened as far as accountability, and how we can do a better job at stretching our resources and coming up with success for the traveling public. So the future is really, we need to preserve our assets. It's making it through the life cycle that we really anticipated. If we're not having that pavement, that asset, throughout the length that we thought it was, then something's not happening correctly. And this is our opportunity to really see what's happening and make sure that those critical elements, components happen timely and actually move forward when they need to do. I do have a slide for questions. All right, thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.